The battle for Willow Lake. The morning I found my lake poisoned, I stood frozen on my deck, coffee mug slipping from my hand, shattering on the weathered wood. Hundreds of fish floated belly up, their silver scales glinting in the dawn light like a grotesque parody of the serene water I'd nurtured for a decade. The air reeked of chemicals, sharp and toxic, stinging my eyes. This wasn't just a lake, it was my tribute to my late wife, Laura, built with my own hands to honor her memory. Someone had turned my sanctuary into a graveyard overnight, and I was determined to find out who. My name is James Harper, a 52-year-old former environmental engineer who left the city grind after Laura's death from cancer, caused by a chemical spill a corporation buried for years. I moved to Willow Creek, a quiet community of 50 homes nestled in the rolling hills of upstate New York, and poured 10 years into crafting this 2-acre lake behind my cabin. It wasn't just a personal project, it became the lifeblood of Willow Creek, supplying water during droughts, teaching kids to fish, and giving retirees a peaceful place to stroll. I had every permit, every water quality report, a decade of data that would make any regulator nod in approval. But someone saw my lake as a threat, and they weren't subtle about it. 3 months before that gut-wrenching morning, I was sketching designs for a client's eco-friendly home when a sleek black sedan pulled into my driveway. Out stepped Margaret Reynolds, the new HOA president, her tailored suit screaming big city lawyer. At 40, she carried herself with the sharp confidence of someone who'd spent years winning courtroom battles. Rumor had it she'd ditched a high-flying real estate law career to elevate our community, though no one knew why she'd traded boardrooms for HOA meetings. "Mr. Harper," she said, clutching a leather folder like it held state secrets, "we've had complaints about your lake. An anonymous source claims it's an unlicensed fish farm, potentially contaminating groundwater." Her tone made it sound like I was running an illegal operation out of my backyard. I invited her in, spreading my permits and reports across my drafting table water management licenses, environmental assessments, the works. "This is a recreational lake, fully compliant," I said, pointing to the documents. "The filtration system I built improves water quality. Want to see the test results?" Margaret barely glanced at the papers, her eyes scanning for a weak spot. "New HOA regulations may affect private water features," she replied, pulling a vague document from her folder. "They're about property values and safety." I asked to see these so-called regulations and who filed the complaint. Her jaw tightened. "The rules are being finalized, and complaints are confidential," she said, standing abruptly. "Consider what's best for the community, Mr. Harper. Beautiful things can become obstacles to progress." Her words dripped with a threat she didn't bother to hide. That night, I found a letter slipped under my door, words clipped from a glossy magazine. "Stop the fish or face consequences. 72 hours. Under my desk lamp, I noticed the precise cuts suggested a left-handed writer, and the paper quality hinted at a high-end subscription. Whoever sent it had just made their first mistake. 2 months later, I sat in my old friend Tom Bennett's university lab, watching him analyze the letter under a microscope. Tom, a forensic expert, had helped me during Laura's lawsuit against the chemical company responsible for her death. "This is sloppy," he said, zooming in on the tape's ridge patterns. "Fingerprints everywhere. And this paper? It's from Architectural Digest, not your average newsstand rag." He ran the prints through a database, and his face darkened. "They match Margaret Reynolds' business license application from 6 months ago. But here's the kicker: she worked for Carter & Wells, the firm that defended Horizon Chemicals in your wife's case." The revelation hit like a punch. Margaret wasn't just an overzealous HOA president. She was tied to the corporation that had covered up the pollution that killed Laura. This wasn't about fish or permits, it was personal. Tom leaned back. "Why move here and target you? Lawyers like her don't run HOAs unless there's a bigger payoff." I left his lab with a plan: install hidden cameras around the lake and play defeated to lure Margaret into a false sense of victory. For weeks, I acted compliant, skipping my evening fishing and telling neighbors I was considering options. Margaret took the bait, driving by my property, snapping photos, and spreading rumors about environmental risks. One evening, I caught her meeting a man in a tailored suit in the community center parking lot, poring over maps and pointing at my land. He handed her a briefcase and drove off in a Mercedes with out-of-state plates I memorized. Something bigger than HOA politics was brewing. At 1:47 a.m., my cameras caught three figures in HOA maintenance uniforms dumping chemicals into the lake's inlet. One turned and waved at my cabin Margaret, taunting me. The next morning, the lake was a sickly blue-green, fish dead, the air toxic. I called 911, snapping photos as my engineer's instincts battled the grief threatening to swallow me. Environmental teams and paramedics swarmed the property. Dr. Susan Carter, an ER physician, confirmed my fears. This is diflubenzurin, a banned insecticide. It's deliberate poisoning. Panic set in when I realized Ellen Parker, a 75-year-old neighbor, and her 8-year-old granddaughter, Lily, used lake water for their garden and drinking. I called Ellen, my hands shaking. Her voice was frail. James, Lily and I are sick. Can you drive us to the hospital? Paramedics rushed them to treatment, and my rage burned hotter than ever. This wasn't just an attack on my lake, it was an attack on my community. The hospital brought a shock. Margaret's son, 16-year-old Ethan, was admitted after swimming in the lake, vomiting and racked with pain. Margaret, frantic, begged the nurse for help, unaware I was listening. Her own son had become a victim of her scheme. Dr. Carter later confirmed 4 more poisoning cases, all from Willow Creek, with symptoms delayed to mask the attack's timing. Margaret approached me in the waiting room, her composure shattered. James, someone's targeting us all. We need to work together. I noticed her clutching her purse, oddly likely recording me. That night, my cameras revealed Margaret directing the chemical dump. As I uploaded the footage to a secure server, a distorted voice called, "Stop investigating, or people die." Tonight was fish. Next time, it's intentional. I knew I was closing in, but the stakes were higher than ever. A week later, I met Chris Larson, a jittery IT specialist, at a diner outside town. He slid me an envelope. I manage City Hall's email servers and saw something about your lake. The emails were explosive. Daniel Thornton, the man I'd seen with Margaret, was CEO of Thornton Properties, planning to turn my lake into a $48 million wellness resort. Margaret's 3 properties would triple in value. She'd researched my history, knowing I'd fight with permits, so she orchestrated the poisoning to force an emergency closure. Payments to a corrupt inspector, a planning commissioner, and a zoning official sealed the deal. Chris added, Ellen's medical bills are over $200,000. Her insurance won't cover it, and Thornton's banking on her selling her home cheap. Desperate, I contacted Rachel Klein, a class action lawyer, only to learn Thornton had hired her as a consultant, blocking her from taking my case. I turned to David Walsh, a public interest lawyer known for his integrity. In his cluttered office, he reviewed the evidence. This is a land grab, but they've left a paper trail. We can win, but it'll take years. There's another option risky. Trust Margaret. Before I could protest, a text from an unknown number hit my phone. Check your email. Time to talk. MR. Margaret's message read, Thornton threatened to kill Ethan if I don't deliver your lake by Friday. I have recordings proving everything. In a diner 2 weeks later, Margaret, disheveled in jeans and a hoodie, slid me an envelope. Financial records, calls, videos, everything on Thornton. She'd been documenting his schemes across 8 communities, using HOAs to manufacture crises for land seizures. A recording revealed Thornton's ties to the governor's office, securing permits no one else could. Dr. Carter joined us, revealing 23 diflubenzurin poisoning cases in Thornton's past projects. Then Margaret's phone buzzed a photo of Ethan, bound in a warehouse, with a demand for the deed in 3 days. No police, no FBI. Margaret dropped a bombshell. She'd been an FBI informant for Agent Emily Liu, building a case against Thornton for 18 months. The poisoning was meant to be fake, but Thornton used real chemicals, catching her off guard. The FBI couldn't rescue Ethan without blowing their case, risking dozens of communities. David proposed a plan. I'd pose as running an illegal testing facility, giving Margaret a fake deed to deliver while exposing Thornton. It was dangerous, but it could save Ethan and the case. 3 weeks after the poisoning, the Willow Creek Community Center overflowed for an emergency HOA meeting. News cameras rolled as Thornton pitched his resort, blaming my lake for the crisis. But Mark Ellis, a bribed inspector turned informant, played Thornton's recorded confessions: bribery, poisoning, Ethan's kidnapping. The crowd gasped. Ethan, freed by the FBI, stormed in, accusing Thornton of manipulating him. Dr. Carter presented medical evidence, linking Thornton's resorts to poisonings across states. Agent Lou arrested Thornton for terrorism, kidnapping, and environmental crimes. Margaret confessed her role, apologizing to me and the community, her remorse palpable. 6 months later, my lake sparkled again, designated a protected preserve. Thornton got 15 years, his $45 million in assets funded victim compensation. Margaret served probation, aiding the EPA. Ethan earned an environmental law scholarship. Ellen and Lily recovered, their settlement funding a scholarship for young environmentalists. The FBI's task force, led by Agent Lou, exposed corruption nationwide. I became a consultant for the Willow Creek Trust, helping communities fight similar threats. Standing by the lake, I felt Laura's presence. Her memory had sparked a movement, turning a personal memorial into a community's shield. Justice wasn't just served, it reshaped our future. What do you think about the role of greed and corruption in this story? Have you seen similar injustices in your own community? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective on fighting for what's right against powerful forces.